and welcome to our painting series. Today we're going to be talking about composition.
Oh no!
Yes, today we're going to be talking about rules.
Yes, and how to break them.
What? So Ash, what do you mean by composition?
Composition just means to put together. It comes from a Latin word, componere, just means to put together.
So I kind of get that with a still life. I can take that jug and I can move it up closer to the apple or whatever. I can't do that with a street scene though, can I? I can't move buildings around.
Yes, but you can move yourself around. Changing your vantage point it will change all the variables in your painting, therefore your composition. So you do have a lot of choices to make even though you can't move things around.
Yes, and it's about choices, and one of the hardest choices you will face is what to leave out. So often you're faced with so many nice things in a piece that you go, I like that, I love that, I want to keep that, whatever. But in reality, your painting will be better if you leave out some of those things. So leaving out things is actually sometimes the hardest part of composition.
Speaking of leaving things out, another really important variable in composition is negative space. So here we have my 3D version of my dad. This is his arm.
I'm glad I'm the 3D version.
If he was a painting, however, stand still. This would be canvas, this would be canvas, this would be canvas. It would all be treated in the exact same way. You would paint his arm, you would paint the space around the arm. Same thing goes for a street scene, for example. So your buildings, of course, very important for your composition. Sometimes the space between the buildings is just as important as the building themselves in terms of getting yourself a good composition.
And what does a good composition mean?
Well, there are some rules that you can follow.
Finally, we get to talk about rules.
The rule of thirds being one of the most well-known sort of rules regarding composition.
And it isn't really about thirds at all, is it?
No, it's not. It's actually the golden mean.
Or the golden section.
Or the golden ratio.
Or the divine proportion.
Or the Fibonacci sequence.
So what do all those things actually mean, Aisling?
Well, in order to do that, we will explain that. We'll have to get into a bit of math, actually.
Uh-oh. I think we're about to enter the nerd zone.
Okay, so basic idea of the golden ratio is you have a measurement of some kind, a length, let's call it, divided into two parts, one that is shorter, one that is longer. If you divide the smaller length into the larger length, we're going to call the smaller length A, larger length B, you should get the same number as dividing the longer length into the whole length. So if you divide B by the whole length, we'll call the whole length C, you'll get the exact same ratio as dividing the smaller length into the larger length.
That sounds complicated. Do you want to run that by me one more time?
Okay, so here we have it. You have a length, a measurement, broken into two parts, one smaller, one longer. If the ratio between the shorter length and the longer length is the exact same as the ratio between the longer length and the whole, you have what is called the divine ratio.
And allegedly, we see this everywhere around us in nature, right?
Yes, early thinkers observed these ratios in nature, like, for example, trees. So you have a tree trunk, and you have branches, and those branches have smaller branches. The ratio between the trunk and the larger tree larger branches would have equaled the ratio between those larger branches and the twigs, and potentially down to the ratio between those twigs and the buds on the twigs, etc., etc.
Yeah, no, I don't really buy into this. I mean, I think it's cute, but I think they stretch the truth sometimes in trying to make this work. But nevertheless, it's useful. It's a useful idea, and certainly the Greeks would have used it a lot in their architecture, right?
Absolutely. They would have had, for example, in their interiors, they would have had a door and a window. And let's say this is the length, the height of the ceiling. So the ratio between the height of the door and the window would have been the exact same as the ratio between the door and the height of the room. So you would see this everywhere in their designs.
And you would think this would be a simple number, but it actually isn't. It looks something like this. if you actually work it out, it works out to be 1.618. I think it's 339, something like this, and it goes on and on and on and on. It's what's called an irrational number, just like pi.
His kind of number.
Oh yes, very funny. But what you will notice is that this is very close to 1 2/3, and so that is what gets us back to the rule of thirds.
Yeah, we just eyeball it basically. We're not going to go and measure out these divine proportions. They're close enough to a third that you can just eyeball them. So I'm going to call that a third. Going to call that a third. And just about here. And voila. We have something close to the divine ratios. And you'll also notice this divides into 9 little sections, and you've got these intersections.
Golden sections.
Golden sections. Often you'll see focal points hovering around these areas.
Yeah, traditionally these were meant to be the best places to position your focal points in a painting.
Sometimes it's nice though to bend those rules a little bit and have a focal point outside of these golden intersections. It creates tension. And it pushes the boundaries a little bit. It gets those focal points out of their comfort zones.
And I agree. I mean, these are kind of guidelines, and doing something like this can be very effective in your painting. The main thing about it, though, is to be purposeful. Know the rule. Know if you're going to break it. Know why you're breaking it. Know what the impact of it is on your painting. Don't just be random about it and place your focal points in all kinds of odd spots.
You need to have a reason.
You have to have a reason behind it. Yeah.
Same thing goes for horizons. Horizon lines generally are placed along these lengths here, but pushing those horizons outside of their, again, comfort zones can be really interesting. So having like a horizon line that is above this third section here. Don't forget, we don't put our horizon lines generally in the middle. That's kind of a big no-no.
But it's definitely worth exploring, moving outside of these comfort zones, as Ashley said. So we'll get into that a little bit more in later episodes and how you use these tactically in a painting. The other thing to keep in mind is when we talk about horizons, we don't necessarily mean literally a horizon. Any strong horizontal in your painting can essentially function like a horizon. So if it's a still life and you've got a tabletop or something like that, or a shoreline, that could serve as a horizon as well. So so it isn't just literally landscape horizons. That rule can sort of apply in other situations as well.
Thanks for sticking with us. We hope you made it through the nerd zone. Just to recap, composition is just how you arrange the elements in your painting. And don't forget, your vantage point is also one of those elements.
And it's really, really important to remember that the golden mean is 1.6180.
No, it is not. You do not need to memorize that number. Sticking with approximating the rule of thirds is enough for us mere mortals.
Yes, and in upcoming videos we will show you how you actually apply these rules in practice in your paintings to get the best possible composition in your works.
And as always, hit that like button if you enjoyed this video, comments and questions below, and we'd love to hear what you think about rules in artwork.
Until the next time.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
And keep my all lovely chunks of you will sit down to seals, blubber rich in morning. I'll mash you up, yes, I know so love away, but it's fair to say, you will still haunt me. Triangles are my favorite shape. 3 points where 2 lines meet. Toe to toe, back to back, let's go. My love, it's very late. Till morning comes. Let's desolate.